Connect to everything you love in life in a bold new way. Introducing BlackBerry Bold. As beautiful as it is powerful.
It's over for the economy, but this is an associated theme. I can see that you are quite gifted from moving from one issue to another, so we'll move on to consumer issues. The question is from Kevin Ashley in New Brunswick, and here it is.
Bonsoir.
Good evening. My question is simple. As you know, the economy is not going very well. And during that time, we have oil in Canada, but the price of gas is increasing at a great pace. Could there be any nationalization of the petroleum industry that we, the Canadians, could profit from this? You, as Prime Minister of Canada, what are you going to do about this?
So the first answer is from you, Mr. Dion. What are you going to do?
Mr. Ashley, that's precisely because I'm concerned about the situation of Canadians who are paying more and more for gas, for hydrocarbons, for natural gas also. And the price will continue to go up because world demand for oil is far greater than supply, given the Chinese, the Indians are now buying more and more cars. So we need a plan to make our country more responsible and more effective in energy terms so as to reduce greenhouse gases at the same time. And the Liberal plan, our whole strategy, seeks to achieve that, to make us more efficient in energy terms, to consume less oil, to pollute less. And everything we want to do for infrastructure, for investments, aims at that. We have a plan, we have a strategy, and we will implement it.
Stéphane Dion, thank you. The floor is Elizabeth Mays. The question is about nationalizing our oil resources.
The Green Party is not in favor of nationalization. The reality is petroleum products are now disappearing all around the planet. And that is why the costs of petroleum products are on the rise. The truth is that consumers need help soon. For the seniors in rural regions, for example, there are major problems of poverty due to energy costs. So you have to reduce taxes on income, reduce other payroll taxes for corporations, and to give the money to people who need the help.
Thank you very much, Ms. May. Mr. Duceppe.
I'm not in favor of nationalizing oil companies. That would be quite a precedent. Ottawa would then want to take control of Quebec's hydro resources, and that's out of the question. The Competition Bureau should be strengthened. The former commissioner said that the law didn't give him enough power to monitor what was going on with gas prices, among other things. We proposed a watchdog office for oil, and that could be set up, and there could be tax credits for taxi drivers, for farmers, for fishermen, for seasonal workers. If the tax cuts to the poor oil companies were taken back, imagine what you could do with that.
I know that Mr. Harper wants to help out the big oil companies, that's clear. But for consumers, well, they're suffering. And I asked you, Mr. Harper, on several occasions in the House of Commons to do something. You always said, oh, well, it's up to the provinces. That's a lack of leadership, Mr. Harper. You can change the Competition Act, as we suggested. You could implement an agency that would provide oversight in this area. We suggested that good idea as well. You could help the car industry build cars that use less gas. You could invest in public transit. You have no plan to help people like Mr. Haché, who is in favor of nationalization. We're in favor of taking action.
Mr. Layton, Mr. Harper, you'll be able to reply now for 45 seconds.
We cut the GST, gas tax, and all consumer goods. So in the cases where prices were being set, we laid charges, and some were even found guilty for these companies. But generally, the price is determined by the international market. The Government of Canada has benefited greatly from this sector. It produces a lot of revenues for the federal government and for other governments. But when all is said and done, if we want to keep energy costs at a reasonable level, it's critical not to create new taxes like the opposition parties are proposing.
Thank you, Mr. Harper. Now, just like at school, I watch people raise their hands, Mr. Dion and then Mr. Giuseppe.
No doubt you can strengthen the Competition Act and the Competition Board, and we'd like to do that. We'd allow them to prosecute, and we'll have civil prosecution, not just criminal. But the basic problem is the cost of oil has gone up by 45 cents a litre since Mr. Harper's been here. I wouldn't claim it's his fault. But you've got 50 billion Chinese and Indians who every year buy cars, use oil, so the demand for oil is constantly increasing. And in 10 years, 20 years from now, we'll look at today's prices and we'll say, oh, those were the good old days, things weren't expensive. From now, well, Canada has to produce more by using less gas and depending less and less on oil. And when you look at the Liberal plan for the 21st century, all our efforts are aiming at that. In terms of infrastructure, in terms of assistance, the manufacturing sector, the tax reform, which is fiscal reform, so this country can be successful in the 21st century.
We were the first ones in the bloc to say that we needed to reduce our reliance on oil. That has to be reduced, and the best way to do that is Kyoto. Kyoto, well, has 1990 as a reference year, not 2006 as Mr. Harper proposes, and that requires absolute greenhouse gas emission reduction targets. And that means a real carbon market based on a territorial approach like the Europeans did. So we would recognize what each province has done. Quebec has reduced by 1.2% its greenhouse gas emissions over 1990. Alberta has increased 36%, and Saskatchewan's emissions have gone way up too. It's the polluter pay principle. That should be the principle, Mr. Harper.
It's 2 times you've been attacked. Would you like to add something, or Mr. Harper? Ms. May.
Thank you, Mr. Bureau. I would like to add something on the issue of cutting the GST. That doesn't do anything to stimulate the economy. That's another idea that Mr. Harper took from Mr. Howard in Australia, cutting the GST as being beneficial to the citizens. For a strong economy, we have to reduce income taxes. We have to reduce payroll taxes for employers and employees, and not reduce corporate taxes. Those are measures that would stimulate the economy, not to cuts to the GST. That doesn't really do anything.
Thank you, Mr. Layton.
I'd like to stress that the NDP does not support an increase in the GST. We think the approach is to help people reduce their dependency on carbon. We need investment. That's the very foundation of a sustainable economy, public transit, sustainable energy, renewable energy, and we have to force the big polluters to pay. I don't know why, Mr. Harper, you don't agree to the proposal from 4 provinces and 11 states and from the EU to force the big polluters to pay with a system of exchange. We have the stock exchange in Montreal. We're willing to get started. You do nothing.
Let me explain.
I'd remind you that we'll be talking about the environment later. We're talking about consumer issues at the moment.